Hello, everyone. Yes, we're rolling out on the socials, and now we're going to let everybody into the Zoom call. Wonderful, wonderful. Admit. Hey, guys, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour once again. Like to see those regulars and also the fresh new faces. We'll do an intro to the program here momentarily, give some context before we get started, and that will roll into today's conversation with Michael McClintock coming to you live from the city of Paris, France, via Kansas City, where he was last stationed. So we're going to talk about his global adventures and his musical adventures as well. And I will introduce the program and introduce him momentarily, but I always like to give people a moment to get yourself settled. If you're checking us out on the socials first time, stay tuned. It's going to be a good program. We'll be here about an hour. If you did want to jump in on our Zoom call, you can do that as well. We'll put some links into the social media comments so that you could jump into the Zoom if you're feeling like get a little closer to the action. Doesn't always happen, but you're always welcome to make comments in the chats or even to become a part of the conversation. Raise your hand. We'll bring you on audio or video if it makes sense. All right, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the program now. This is Piano Tech Radio Hour. What we do is we gather here on the internet every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This could include manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, and makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. That's an online learning resource that brings you cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You could also subscribe to Radio Hour. That's just $16 a month. You get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. Join using that link bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. Take a minute to remind you we have an audio only version of the program at pianotechradio.com. That podcast is received acclaim all over the globe. We've reached 100, top 10, even number one status in various locales in the performing arts category on iTunes. We also have our social medias we wanted you to check out. That's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Our Substack blog has some great information out there. There's also a kind of related program that's new. I always like to plug around this time. It's the Future Education Podcast. We're talking about really fascinating stuff. Um, just put out an episode about how quantum computing is changing education and how there's accessible jobs for folks. Maybe even a piano tuner might be a good person to transition to a quantum computing technician. So listen to that episode and tell me what you think. But without further ado, I would love to introduce our guest for today, Michael McClintock, a world-acclaimed guitarist and educator. He's known for his genre-crossing sound and dedication to sharing world and Latin guitar traditions. He's got roots in classical performance and deep studies in jazz, flamenco, Brazilian, and Cuban music. He's developed a unique voice that is as technically refined as it is emotionally rich. He's performed internationally and built an online community of students through his YouTube channel, Patreon resources, and published guitar method book, all of which reflects his passion for making global music traditions accessible to everyone. Michael McClintock, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Thank you very much, Ethan. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Um, it's a bit of a tradition here. I always like to jump off the conversation with a peek into your childhood or your early experiences with music. So, when did you first get into music and guitar, and when did you start to realize that this was the path of your life?
Sure. I was around the age of 13. It was eighth grade, and I was officially bad at everything else, mainly sports. I definitely gave it a try, and I mean everything, and was not good at any of them. So my uncle, who was a guitar player, said, "Why don't you come take a couple of lessons. I'll let you borrow an acoustic guitar. And so I did, and about 3 weeks into lessons, something just clicked. Probably for the first time in my life, it was like, blessed to be talented at something, and it felt really nice. And I stuck with it. I just fell completely in love and stayed dedicated to it to this day. So that was
Oh, it's a
a
great
mark.
story. Yeah. I love that. I love, there's something, I don't know, especially for me, I like the idea of people finding their place, and I don't know that it always happens. I feel like there's probably people out there that have some niche that they could fill and, they just don't get there. They never cross paths.
I'm assuming we're talking to a lot of musicians, piano players, and things like
Hmm.
that. And so, um, as an educator, I think I see this quite a bit. I've been lucky enough. You're probably going to hear me say that a lot. I feel like I've had a blessed life to teach a lot of doctors, plastic surgeons, very highly intelligent people that are well-to-do, and I always can see a little something behind their eyes that they wish maybe they had pursued the arts.
Mm.
And I've, this has happened more than once. I've taught more than one position. They're just they seem to love music as much as I do, and guitar, and they just seem to just get that twinkle in their eye when they play even Sweet Home Alabama or something. They're like, so yeah. I mean, I know what you mean whenever you express that you find joy in people discovering something that they really connect with. It's not every day.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to hear about it too. Yeah, I feel like there's a mix. I'm sure certain people are meant to be a doctor. Some people are meant to be a doctor and play music on the side. I guess there's not a lot of people who are meant to play music and be a doctor on the side. But I guess I forget who it was. There's a there's a famous saxophone player, and I can't think of his name right now, but I think he went to law school. And like I think he fully graduated, but then also, and so actually could be a lawyer, but plays music. So I guess he could be but he made it very well. I want to say, is it Joshua Redmond? Um, anyways, I'll look it up here, but it's that is a thing I guess here and there that
Yeah,
that you do have people playing music and doing something like that on the side. Um, so I'm glad you found this niche. Let's talk about where you're at now and sort of just a quick overview of the path there, right? Because you're in Paris, you came
sure.
from Kansas City. I'm sure there's probably been a few other stops along the way. Um, Sort of what's been the general path of movement and place and why, Paris, France right now for the last couple of years.
Sure. So, real quick, I grew up in a small town called Neosho, Missouri. There was a famous television show on Netflix called Ozark that was
Okay.
very hot for a few years, and I'm essentially around that neck of the woods where the TV show is supposed to be. And so I graduated high school in 2002 and moved to Kansas City. I studied classical guitar at the conservatory there for 4 years, and then pursued flamenco and got really interested in Brazilian music and jazz. But then I started traveling to Havana, Cuba. I had a friend who went to Cuba a lot. He invited me to go with. So I went with him, and then I met a girl, fell in love, started going to Cuba frequently. We got married. She came and lived with me in Kansas City for 8 years, and then we decided to move to Paris 2.5 years ago. So that was kind of the jumps into Paris, and so I've been here for 2.5 years and playing a lot of guitar, a lot of jazz guitar. Jazz is very popular here, and so I've been playing a lot of jazz guitar, and I finished composing and recording and released my first album of original compositions since I've been here as well. So that's kind of a quick jump and leap to where I am now. So that's where we're
Yeah.
at the moment.
Okay. Well, I want to hear some music, but I think I want to ask I want to explore one of these topics you brought up first, and then maybe we'll get to a track. So all this travel to Cuba, it's an interesting place, especially for someone from kind of like small town, Kansas, or sorry, Missouri, to end up in Cuba and spend so much time there and meet someone there and sort of those two cultures mixing. Um, when was I guess remind us when the first time you went there was. And I know even today there's a bit of, it's not a simple place to go to Cuba, it's a different world. Somebody I know just recently went there, there's no Target, there's no, Walgreens on the corner, it's a
No,
different culture. It's a different place to be. So when was the first time you went and what was it like to decide to go there and make that trip?
I went in 2013 for the
Okay.
first time, and it was because I was seeing all of my friends, coworkers, musicians, travel to different parts of the world and come back changed in a way. I had a dear friend who spent 2 months in Brazil. He was in Sao Paulo and Rio. And then I had another dear friend who had traveled to Spain, Argentina, Mexico, and I was kind of the, the guy at the end of the line, and I was really starting to feel like I was missing something. So I had a friend. He was from Mexico, and I met him through music, playing Latin music. Him and his mom and I became a friend of the family. Took some Spanish lessons, and he'd been traveling to Cuba for a few years, and he was just like, "Would you like to go?" And I was, because I was probably complaining to him. I was probably just expressing my jealousy to all my friends about all this travel, and he was like, "Let's go. What's the problem?" He's like, "We'll stop off in Mexico. We'll spend a couple of days in Cancun. You can enjoy that, check that out, and then we'll go over it." So we did. We were in Mexico for 2 or 3 days, and went for 3 weeks. And we did a couple of different provinces. They don't call them states there; they call them provinces. And so we traveled to a couple of different provinces, and then the last week was in Havana, and then that's where I got to spend a little bit more time with a woman named Dalida, and she's now my wife. And it was slow and low. We were, just getting to know each other slowly over that last week, but it clicked in pretty hard the last couple of days. So that was the first time I went. It was 2013.
Mm,
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was a bit before that. I mean, it probably was let's say, I mean, maybe even not 10 years before that, but maybe 5 or 10. There's the Buena Vista Social Club sort of thing, which isn't, I wouldn't call it a similar story, but it is the story of kind of someone going to Cuba, learning about the music, bringing it back, sharing it. Did you find yourself exploring similar types? I'm sure you're familiar with that film and that album and stuff. Did you find yourself exploring similar types of music or something different? Or, in terms of your music, did you bring your guitar? Like, did you play guitar while you were there, or were you just kind of tourist type of stuff? What was that like?
So no, I, the first time I went, I didn't even see that much music, which is
Mm,
very difficult to do in Cuba because there's music everywhere. But I had my head in the clouds, and we were spending a lot of time in different parts of the country. And then, like I said, that last week I was so fixated on this girl. But I went back to spend some time with her in 2014, and that's when I saw a lot of musicians playing in different bars and cafes. And I was mistaking this Cuban instrument for a guitar, but they have an instrument called a tres cubano, or a Cuban three, and it's got three doubled strings. It's kind of like a 12-string guitar concept, but cut in half essentially.
sure.
And at that point in time, I kind of was able to come up for air for the first time and be like, what's going on here? And so she helped me approach the gentleman who was playing. He was super cool, like most Cubans are. He was just like, take it, check it out. And I had no idea. The tuning was a little bit different. But after that, we went back to her apartment that night, and she was like, "You don't really know much about Cuban music, do you?" And of course, I was like, "Well, the Buena Vista Social Club, yeah." And so she gave me, a flash drive with like 40 different albums. And so when I had to return to the States, I had a lot of things to study, including the Buena Vista Social Club. And I knew what this instrument was. And so I bought one online, sort of kind of learned how to play it. And then when I returned for my third time, I went for 2 months, but I had purchased a book about how to play the instrument and met a gentleman in the United States named John Griffin, who gave me some phone numbers of teachers in Cuba. So while my girlfriend at the time was working her day job, I would go take private lessons from the premier Tres Cubano teacher on the entire island. I got that lucky because I said I'm lucky at the beginning. And he
Yeah.
was about 15 blocks up the street. His name is Efrain Amador. And he wrote multiple books about how to play the instrument. He teaches at, their version of Juilliard, which is called AISA, the Institute of Superior Arts. And a sweetheart of a guy. And he was just come over to the house as many times as you want. He was happy to make a few bucks, and I was happy to learn how to play. And so he taught me actually how to play like classical tres cubano. He was a real classical music fan. But inside of his books, he had these little fragments of different Cuban rhythms. One was a nengon, another one was a changui. So I was getting deeper into Cuban music, not, the one of It's a Social Club, who I adore. They were kind of scratching the surface of like son and this cha 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 and things like that. But he quickly introduced me into a deeper style, and so I was getting into music from that angle. So kind of
Wow.
different than most
Yeah.
Americans. Yeah,
Yeah. What a privilege. All right. Now
definitely.
it's time. Let's listen to something. So we have four different things to choose from that you had shared. What do you think might be a good thing to listen to at this minute in the conversation?
Yeah, I wrote a track called Matancera, and it's a Matancera is a woman from Matanzas. My wife is from the province of Matanzas, and so I wrote this for her. And it's me playing the Cuban instrument that I was talking about, the tres cubano, as well
Mhm.
as a classical guitar accompaniment. And then I layered on a little bit of percussion as well, because it really wouldn't be Cuban music without a little bit of percussion. So you can get a little bit of a taste of my compositional style and the Cuban instrument with this track, Matancera.
Okay. Now I'm having an issue here because for some reason my computer is not letting me open the folder that's in. So give me 1 second here and see what's going
Sure,
on.
sure.
Downloads. Working on it.
Oh,
We try we try another thing. If not, we might do the video that you shared. Are any of these on like Spotify or something? I
this
could
is
also
on
try that
YouTube.
way.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's also on Spotify as well.
Okay, okay. Let me try a different method though for sharing computer audio. Yeah, let me just go ahead and try Spotify. I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah,
Good old computers.
yeah, always. I'm updating mine as we speak.
I mean,
So
it's
yeah,
it's funny. It's literally the folder that's in cannot open, but all the other folders on my computer I can't. I don't know. All right, I've got Spotify open here, so let's see here.
you type
I,
in Michael McClintock with two
right.
C's.
Yeah.
Uh, my album is called Here and There.
Okay. And I've
I think
got,
it's
and
the
what's the name of
second
this one
to
again?
last, Matancera. It's the second
Not,
to last track.
okay.
Mata.
So here and there, right? You said it was from here and there.
Uh-huh.
And then, same math. Oh, yeah, there it is. Matancera. Okay. Let's see how this goes. I could share my audio. Computer audio. Why not? There's stereo. Share. All right, and here goes a play on that. Let's see how it goes. Boom. You hear that?
Got it.
kind of faded out here.
Sure.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right, I like that. So let me unpack it from my perspective here. So it's one, you're playing just one tres, or is there two? Or how
One,
is this?
there's one tres and then one classical guitar, nylon string guitar.
Okay,
But
okay,
yeah,
okay, cool. And are you playing both, or are you playing with somebody else?
I'm playing both.
You're playing both.
Yeah, I layered it. I layered it together.
And
Yeah.
the only remaining instrument is just that, is a clave, right? Is that
I
the,
used two. I used the traditional clave that people usually play in their hands, and I used what the Cubans call a wah-wah, like a little wood block,
okay,
right? Sometimes red or yellow, and people
sure.
play with sticks. And so I went back and forth between a couple of traditional patterns to kind of layer in and make the sections try to pop a little bit with some of the different patterns and the percussion, the claves.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then I've done a little bit of this type of music, I suppose. But well, I heard the sort of montuno pattern, right? But on the
Yes.
guitar, would you call that a montuno? Even when you play it on the guitar, is there another name for it? Is it? Yeah.
No, you can call it a montuno. Yes, that's totally acceptable. Yeah.
And then the actual rhythm that you're playing there, we mentioned the instrument, the clave. Is that let's see, I forget. So the clave, it has a specific pattern to it. You usually have like a 2-3 or a 3-2.
This is
Is
a
that was
two
that a trick?
three.
Okay.
This is a dos tres, and then it's kind of a mix. I do a mix of a son and rumba clave, and I think it's a 2-3. They're essentially the same thing. You just either start on the three side or the two side, but
Right.
it's a tres dos.
Uh-huh.
That So I'm doing kind of a hybrid between the son clave and the rumba, and then
Yeah.
when I go to the major section, I go to a traditional. I think I switch it to a dos tres, just son clave. Just yeah,
Okay.
so it's kind of a hybrid song. It's got a couple of different rhythmic patterns to it.
And you mentioned the sort of, I guess, styles or traditions too. You were kind of mentioning like you have the cha-cha or, the
Yes,
different kind of rhythms and styles. Is there a specific name to this like kind of style you going for here or using here?
I would, to be safe, I would probably put it under the category of son, Cuban
So,
son,
okay.
son, which was a precursor of salsa. And so, I would pretty much call it son to be safe. I think that would, without getting too deep, it's,
Right.
I would go with that.
Okay. And I guess because you mentioned it, can you salsa dance?
It's mandatory. If you
It's
marry a
mandatory.
Cuban, it's mandatory. It's mandatory.
Okay.
If not, you're gonna watch her dance with good-looking Cuban guys all night.
Right,
And
right. Now the question is, does she lead or do you lead?
if I have begun leading over the
Okay,
last few years. I've
I
begun leading.
figured it out.
I need to learn more turns, but I won't lie. For the first year or two, she led. She backled gently, but now
The
I can actually do it. I can do
okay, great. All right. So by the time you're old and gray, you'll be the lead, you'll be officially be the full leader, and you'll have all the moves down. And then you'll be that cute old couple dancing salsa. So that'll be perfect.
it. Sounds good.
Um, um, well, yeah, this is so fascinating. And so in terms of now your wife, your wife moved from Cuba. That must have been a big decision. Is she
Yeah.
musical or just, just enjoys the music?
She's a fantastic dancer, and she's much more on the production and management side of things. She's a highly intelligent lady, and she's very good with business. She worked for the Ministry of Economics for years in Cuba, so she had a very high position with the government there, and she's helped me very much with my business. She actually encouraged me to start my Cuban ensemble while I was living in Kansas City. I wouldn't have done it without her pushing me. And then she also had a very good idea of why not start guided tours to Cuba. And so we put together an entire organization called Cubanisms, which had the musical group and the travel agency uh, inside of it. And since I moved, unfortunately, we had to discontinue the group, but we still do annual trips, and we've got one coming up this January. We always go during their big jazz festival called the Jazz Plaza Festival, which is the largest in the Caribbean. And so we usually if we're getting lucky, we'll have a very good group or multiple groups that'll go with us every winter. So Chicago, for example, is a good place to escape late January. Kansas City is not as bad as Chicago, but it's also pretty nasty. So um, no, she's the brain.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the brain, and I'm proud to say it. I have no problem admitting that. She's she's very smart.
And who I said, and whose decision was it to move to France here? And did you know
She
you would be staying this long?
I had a feeling she was ready. She was ready to try something different. We both loved Kansas City and had a great time. We were able to buy a home and have, to this day, beautiful friends and family there. But she was interested in living in a bigger city. Havana is a pretty fast-moving city with a lot of international activity, and I think she was missing that. And so it was a big decision for her to leave Cuba. She had a good job. She was working for a Spanish company at the time. So I had to really work hard to convince her to do that. So she did. We were together for 8 years, and when she brought up the idea of trying something different, I couldn't say no. So we traveled to Paris. We had a friend introduce us to some now friends here that were musicians. I brought a guitar and ended up going to tons of jam sessions, and we just fell in love with the city. We came for a full month. We were able to get away for a full month, and she connected immediately. She speaks French as well. I've been learning,
Hmm.
but that also helps. But I've never lived in a real big city. Chicago, I love. New York, I love. KC's great. It's mid-size, but I wanted to spend some time in a big city before I kick the bucket. And so, man, Paris is great. It's beautiful. And so we applied for a visa. Actually, had to go to Chicago to drop off the package, and they said yes. They accepted it. It was a international talent visa. So thanks to my career and everything, France was like, yeah, come on out, come on over. So
Great. So wait, so does that mean you were, I guess I don't know what the visa is. Is it a visa where you have a certain amount of time there? Do you get to live there for long term, or what is the, not to
at,
get to, I'm not trying to get personal. I'm just curious, like what kind of options you have at hand, you know?
yeah, no, it's good that we have something to talk about. It was they at first they gave me 2 years, and so they
Oh, that's a
kind of
long
they give
time,
you
yeah.
a little, yeah, they give you a little window to pretty much come and set up shop. And I've been again extremely lucky. I've met some great musicians here that have hired me. They've taken me under their wing, and so we just add to the dossier, every week or every month when I do something big. And then at the end of that 2 years, which was about 6 months ago, we reapplied. And so I finished my album here. So I included that in the submission. I included all kinds of performance activity. I got to play in Sardinia, Italy. I got to play in Belgium. All those things, you just kind of start collecting your France activity. And then we reapplied, and they said, it looks good. You can have 2 more years. So I'll have to reapply for another extension in about 18 months. And if they give me 2 more years inside that time frame, I can apply for citizenship, and I will. I will. If I can get lucky one more time, if I can keep working hard and can get one more 2 year chunk, I'm going to go for a citizenship.
That's fascinating. There's a book you may not be aware of, but I'll have you check out. It's called The Piano Shop on the Left Bank. Have you heard of this book?
No, I have not.
Grab a copy. It's relatively known among piano technicians, but it's about an expat. Well, it's an expat living in Paris, and he just kind of comes across this mysterious. You can't even tell if it's a piano shop. It's kind of one of those things where you go through the door and then there's opens up a whole, secret world of.
Nice.
Um, but I've never been to Paris. I'd like to come. You're sort of making me want to go there even more. But I think it would be fun to read that book, and then you can actually go to the little locations that are mentioned and catch the vibe of the city, as you read it. So
That
check
sounds
it out.
cool.
Let me know what you think.
I'll read it.
Um, let's listen to another track here. What would you recommend? I guess we've got the all of Spotify at this point now. We'd have to stick. Unless I could figure out how these files open, but I think we're still stalled out there. Um, yeah, what should we check out?
We can slow it down a little bit. When I first moved here to Paris, I wrote a ballad for my mother. Her name is Mereda, and I think it's track number 4. And I'm a I'm a big sucker for jazz ballads.
Okay.
I like bossa novas. I like jazz ballads. I guess I like really pretty slow tempo music. And so I was inspired by a beautiful jazz song called You've Changed, and a version by Kurt Rosenwinkel, who's a fantastic guitar player. And it just kind of came out. It just was one of those nice organic moments of composition that the song just kind of fell out of my fingers over about an hour or two. We were sitting in our Airbnb at the time. We hadn't moved into our apartment yet, and it just kind of came out. So it's called Mereda. I composed it for my mom.
Great. Does it make sense to play it from the beginning, or should I start in the middle anywhere, or what?
You can play it from the beginning. It's a
Okay.
slow tempo kind of AABA form.
Okay.
So the first minute and a half is the melody, and then I just kind of develop it up an octave, and then up an octave again for at the end with a bridge. Or if you want to jump to the guitar solo, you could jump in to roughly maybe a minute 15 seconds in.
All right.
Yeah, we could
Yeah,
do
let's
that.
we'll start at the
Solo.
beginning and see maybe we'll get to the solo. We have time to get to the solo. Let's check it out.
Cool.
Wonderful. I like that.
Thank you.
Um, how I'm not a guitar expert, been playing it. How the higher notes on that feel like they're kind of towards the the top end of the spectrum, or is it, or do you have more range to go on a tune like that in terms of
That
the
was
upper?
that when it went up high, that's
Yeah,
the very last fret I have on my
yeah,
instrument. Yeah, and
yeah.
so that was the top. That was it.
Yeah, I could tell like it really plays the range of the instrument and really kind of make those shine. I like that about it.
Nice man. Thank you.
Um, I can't help but reflect on the interesting mix of cultures you now can bring together, right? You've got the French, got that kind of like Django Reinhardt kind of, also just kind of like the French music and the French versions of jazz, and then you've got the Afro-Cuban kind of stuff coming in there. And then of course Kansas City, I think it's easy for us as like I'm from Chicago and Michigan, Midwesterners to kind of think of even though jazz is great, to think of these other places as where there's something cool and exotic. But Kansas City is like Kansas City jazz, it's got its own you know, style and history and roots, these deep roots. I think you could think of Kansas City as like American roots music.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think about all those things coming together and consciously and subconsciously?
What's well, one thing that's interesting is you can live in a city for 20 years and you know that there's something good happening in the city, but you never really realize it until you leave for a few years. And then it's just like some of the musicians in Kansas City are so good. I mean, the jazz tradition, Charlie Parker is from Kansas City. And so I think, his influence is endless. And so there's some players in Kansas City that are just top, absolute top, world class. And so that's one thing that I took for granted while living in Kansas City. I wish I would have studied with some more players, and I wish I would have developed a little bit more jazz and bebop knowledge while I was there. And so living here in Paris has made me feel that way. And then just kind of, I was thinking about this earlier today because I knew we were going to have an interview. And it's pretty cool that I have these different knowledge bases, but it's also interesting when I look and I can see the people that have dedicated their lives to just one craft or to just one style, and then you just see like these monster piano players or monster guitar players. I've mentioned Kurt Rosenwinkel earlier, who he can definitely play some different styles of music, but he was primarily jazz guitar, and it shows. I mean, he's just a monster. And so that's um, I wouldn't change anything, but that's one thing that sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, if I would have stayed with classical guitar, I'd probably be a pretty heavy player by now, potentially world class. That would have been my goal. But I can't help it. I can't, I'm never going to change because I'm 41. And so it went from rock and roll and blues to classical to flamenco to Brazilian music. And then with Brazilian music, I got interested in improvisation. And then I've been flirting with jazz for years, but I've never really gotten married to jazz or close enough to have a proper breakup. So, um, but one thing that it gives me a lot of joy is to be able to compose with these different colors. These to be able to paint with different brushes, um, and it's something that uh, I don't know if I could compose just a classical piece or if I could compose just multiple jazz pieces. Everything is kind of bleeding into each other now, and it makes me want to continue to kind of try to see what kind of actual voice I have because right now I think it's still strongly influenced by quite a few different players. But the older I get, I start to see little points of breaking away and trying to find my own sound and things like that. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I answered your question very well.
Oh, I like it. It's a great answer. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of people, taking non-traditional paths and seeing where it leads, I don't know why. There's a couple things thinking of, especially when you're talking, and one of them is uh is Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Are you familiar with these stories, right?
The
The
Lion, the Witch,
kid,
and the
the
Wardrobe.
lion which in the wardrobe, the kid's wandering around playing hide and seek and goes into the wardrobe, and then all of a sudden, there's this magical world you would never find if you didn't get lost first, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
that just yeah, just to kind of maybe put a bow on that, it's like I would have to thank meeting my wife to Latin music because I met a Latin family through music. We were playing Brazilian music at a winery in Kansas. Um, and I remember when they came out to see the music and to drink some of the wine, and he was intrigued. He was like, why are you guys playing this like bossa nova Brazilian repertoire? And from that, I met him and his family, and then he introduced me to my wife. And so about half of the friends I have right now are thanks to playing different styles of music. And it's just kind of interesting how it bridges, how music can bridge all of that together. I've
wonderful.
still got I've still got some friends and my old teacher from conservatory from classical. It goes all the way back to the classical days, and then you just build from there.
hmm Yeah, I mean, we get to talk on this program to lots of people, in different places. We people in Germany or Italy or um, Latin America, and especially these cities too. The more you're there, you'll have the opportunity. I lived in New York for several years, but we talked several weeks ago to a gentleman who moved from, old Amsterdam to New Amsterdam, right? He was a huge fan of jazz, and he lived in Holland, and then he came and he went over, and now he lives in New York, and that's his place, right? But then he had all those interesting pathways, and especially now you're in a larger in urban environment, you have the opportunity to. Um, I've talked to people who live in New York. Now they're playing in these ensembles where it's just like, oh, hey, yeah, we need someone, and it's Arabic music, right? Or it's, some, odd kind of polka or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you get, just because you're in that big city and people need players, you start to get even more, in your mishmash of music.
I love it. I like
Uh,
that's the thing I love about music.
Now, I keep thinking of New Orleans. Have you visited New Orleans?
I have I have
Okay.
a few times. Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like just inadvertently by the places that you've been, when you put it all together, it's New Orleans, right? You got the French Quarter, you've got the sort of Afro-Cuban stuff, and then you've got the Kansas City going down. I feel like if I had to put you one place that put it all together, it'd be New Orleans.
that's cool, man. I've never thought of that. I've never ever. That's very cool, Ethan. Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, they call New Orleans the northernmost Caribbean city. I don't know if you knew that. The northernmost. I think that's correct. Somebody might want to fact check that, but I believe they call it that. So it's got the Caribbean vibe, and then of course it's got the French Quarter vibe, the French, thing, the jazz, of course, and so you know, that's a cool observation. Nice, very cool.
Now you just got to move different places. It'll change your center of gravity to some other city, but right now you're New Orleans. Now you got to move to like Sweden or something like that, and then that'll put you up more like Montreal or something. I don't know, but right now your center of gravity is New Orleans. Um, all right, let's listen to another track. What would you choose next?
You know your audience a little bit better than me. We could do
Mhm.
something that has a little bit more of a classical vibe to it, or we could do something that has a little bit more Midwest Americana vibe.
Hmm,
Uh,
I want to hear Midwest Americana.
okay, the song "Big Sugar,"
Okay, all right, great. Get that going.
uh,
We go.
a little bit more of a finger style kind of an obvious finger style guitar pattern to it, and it's got kind of some kind of country jazz vibes to it.
Awesome. Let's
Yeah.
hear it. fade that one out. That's cool. I like that. hmm it's got so many things that it makes me think of. Um, it's very interesting, and I don't know how it probably unintentional. I hear like a little bit of Pat Metheny almost in there. I
Yeah.
hear a little bit of I almost hear a little bit of like Grateful Dead. I don't know if that's intentional, but some of those licks that you hear in the long jams, from the
Yeah.
Grateful Dead, they were coming out there. Um, I feel you've got a very nice, unique voice with that one.
Thank you.
It sounds familiar, but not like anything I've heard, so that's very cool.
Oh, very nice. All right.
And tell me more, because you said, you started out in classical. The tradition of classical, whether we like it or not, is not so improvisational. And then you mentioned you're sort of like getting more into jazz. Where would you say you're at in terms of your sort of, and you're playing in jam sessions there in Paris, with your sort of level of comfort with improvisation and sort of the jazz lexicon, like where you feel like you're at in terms of how far you could go?
I'm, I've learned enough to really want to go back to the drawing board, which is
Okay.
an interesting place. Um, there's some specific things, some specific check boxes you need to be able to check off to be a jazz musician, in my opinion. And there's some that I cannot do very well. Rhythm changes, for example. I've not dedicated hardly any time to that, and that's a big form. I love blues. I can play comfortably on a blues, and I won't say all 12 keys. I don't practice blues every day in all 12 keys, but and then like John Coltrane, Coltrane changes is another thing that I haven't dedicated too much time to
You mean
these
like giant steps changes,
giant
that kind of
steps,
stuff? Oh yeah,
that
okay.
that kind of cycle. And so that's so there's a large amount of the jazz tradition that I have yet to really try to tackle. But I'm, getting more and more comfortable with some of the bebop type isms, if you will, some of the Charlie Parker things, enclosures, and tritone substitutions. And you mentioned Pat Metheny. I'm a big Pat Metheny fan. So I'm actually working on one of his solos right now, and I can understand everything he does except for like one little moment, which is uh, an
Say that
album
one more
called.
time. The last little sentence.
Yeah, it's one of his more famous solos. It's from a composition called "Have You Heard" from Letter from
Okay.
Home. It's made,
Okay.
some people think it's like one of his bigger solos, and so I had a little downtime, which is rare, and I was like, I want to try to learn it, and I can actually play it. I can actually play it, but more importantly, I can understand 99% of it. He does this one little pentatonic side slip thing where I'm not quite sure what he's thinking about, but I think it's going to be about 10 more years before I really start to find my own deep improvisational voice. But I'll be 50, so hopefully I'll make it to about 80. So I'll have maybe 30 years of some kind of originality. But that's yeah. So
Yeah.
with jazz, man, yeah. But I think that's just with classical. It's just a lifelong pursuit. I mean, it's like we're never really done, are we? I mean, even the greats will say the same thing. They're always chasing the next thing. So I guess that's the thing I love the most, and one of the things that I secretly hate about music. Because I do have I don't want to say I have a lazy streak, but I will take an easy route from time to
Uh-huh.
time. And with music, man, there's no easy
There's no
routes.
there's no
Yeah.
easy routes, yeah. Uh yeah. Um no, but that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more as you continue to explore jazz and improvisation as well. Um And we've had a few guests on here. I didn't know of this fellow before having a few of these guests, or maybe I'd heard his music, but hadn't explored it. Nikolai Kapustin. Are you familiar with Kapustin?
No, I'm not.
So check out Kapustin if you get a chance. He is Russian, a Russian composer. and listen to some of his compositions. They sound like really great jazz pieces that maybe would have been, you know, created by like a Quincy Jones or something like this. But he's a Russian guy and he writes them out note for note.
Yeah,
Um, I think he's got some guitar pieces too, but it's a very cool bridge between classical and jazz music. And it's intentionally jazz, but like it's really he's a really great composer. Um,
check it out.
and there's so many things. We only have about a minute or two left here. There's a couple
Oh,
things I
wow.
wanted to mention. Um, I wanted to talk about your YouTube stuff and your teaching stuff, but we may not have much time. Um, and then I had a question. When you go to the jam sessions in Paris, what kind of tunes are they playing? You know?
They're 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 pretty faithful to the standards that we're familiar with back
Okay,
home, you know. So I mean, blues. I mean, all the kind of top 20 autumn leaves, alone together.
okay,
All you can safely call some bossa novas. You can call the girl Ipanema, Corcovado, and
okay.
so no, they're on top of their game. So you can pretty
Hmm.
much call all the same standards that you would call in Chicago or New York.
Okay.
You know, each town's kind of got their own little bag, but
Hmm.
you can call pretty much anything you want here. They're gonna be hit.
Okay. Yeah. Um, all right, yeah, and again, we can meet again, but if there's and it might be a good time as we transition to the end there to just mention your YouTube channel and all the stuff you're doing there. And we'll walk it out here pretty soon. But yeah, that was another thing I wanted to cover, but you can't cover everything.
No,
But yeah,
can't cover
Matt,
everything.
what are the last things you want to mention and sort of mix that in with, how it's going with the YouTube and what you're getting out of that?
Yeah, the YouTube channel. You can pretty much find me anywhere across the internet under Michael McClintock Music, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and I've been spending a lot of time on YouTube over COVID. I got into teaching a lot of Brazilian bossa nova classics, and a few of those got some pretty good traction. So I'm getting close to 10,000 subscribers. But right now, I'm working on a series of getting from point B to point C on guitar, kind of like, you know, guitar players, sometimes we don't know what the notes are, we don't know what triads are, you know, things like that. So I'm going painfully slow and it's quite boring, but I think it's important. I want there to be a resource on YouTube that hopefully over the next few years it'll get popular. And then I also wrote a book called Master the Guitar Fretboard and Essential Music Theory in 10 Weeks. And it's my concept of how to learn the guitar string by string because it's a labyrinth to say the least. So if there's any guitar fans out there, Michael McClintock Music, you can find all kinds of nerdery and things like that on YouTube specifically. So
Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure. Glad you could be with us. I know it's like 8 or 9 there now. So thanks for staying up a little bit and taking some time away from the sort of evening wind down. It's
no,
Saturday too. Are you going to go out or is it you're in for the night?
I'm in. I'm in.
He's in for the night.
Yeah. A
All right.
Saturday night off is gold. So I'm
All
home.
right. Well, I'll walk us out here. This has been another fascinating journey at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thank you again to Michael McClintock for joining us today, as well as our live audience. We're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you joined us today, just for this session, subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month. Recording of each week's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week as well. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. Don't forget about the audio only podcast, the Substack, the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to the mailing list on our website at themasterclasses.com. And yeah, and check out the new thing at uotu.xyz. That's the Future Education Podcast, uotu.xyz. Michael, I'll sign us off, but if you want to just quick jump back on the Zoom and we'll do a quick wrap up, just you and me, that'd be great. But
Sounds
thank you, everyone. We'll see you again next time.